Michael Saylor is doubling down on Bitcoin. 20 days ago, I saw this tweet come out from Whale Alert. I didn't find the exact same tweet, but this was the message, and it was that Michael Saylor or MicroStrategy has transferred almost 50% of their Bitcoin to Coinbase. This was huge, created a lot of FUD. A lot of people were scared, because this was in the midst of Bitcoin falling tremendously. But the very next day, he came out with this tweet in classic Michael Saylor fashion. He's doubling down on Bitcoin. So basically, what he's doing is he's offering a $500 million worth of senior secured notes with an annual return of 6.125%. Basically, he's taking up more debt so that he can buy more Bitcoin. He's no stranger to doing this. In February, he did a very similar thing, only with convertible bonds, where he raised around $1 billion in debt to buy Bitcoin. As of June 14th, he issued these senior secured notes, offering $500 million worth, and they're due in 2028. This is a pretty good deal for people who want exposure, want all the upside of Bitcoin, and a very limited downside. In addition to the senior secured notes, he also formed a new company, which is basically going to function as his bank, because it's just going to hold all of MicroStrategy's Bitcoins, called MicroStrategy LLC, which I think is a very suiting name, for the macro play that Bitcoin essentially is. It's no micro play, so I think that's kind of funny. There's not really a surprise move from Michael Saylor. He's one of the most outspoken and major players in the Bitcoin scene. He's not afraid to raise debt to buy Bitcoin. Essentially, his philosophy now is to gather as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. You know, that's his goal, his vision for the future. But in his words, he raises smart debt to buy Bitcoin because Michael Saylor, he runs a company that do have a lot of assets and a healthy cash flow. So I want to show this clip here where he talks about how you can do this strategy that Michael Saylor is doing out in the open on a personal level.
The best thing going, of course, would be scarce assets that you can finance. So if you have a home that you love and you can get a 2.5% mortgage for the next 10 to 30 years against it, then it makes sense to maximize the mortgage, hold the property. When the money supply is expanded by a factor of 10, if your home is in a place where no one else wants to live, it won't go up by a factor of 10 because it won't be scarce. But if you've got 3 acres in the Hamptons on the beach or in Palm Beach, right? If you live in a truly desirable community, the price of the home is going to go up. And as the price goes up, your loan's going to be fixed. You'll be able to refinance the home. You've got leveraged equity, if you will, or leveraged property. I think Bitcoin fits into that. Bitcoin is appreciating at the fastest rate, faster than the NASDAQ or the S&P or luxury real estate or average real estate around the country, because it's the most scarce, most desirable asset.
Now, this strategy on a personal level, it's not for everybody because not everybody is in a position where they can finance or refinance their house or any other asset that they may have. But nevertheless, it's a very interesting concept and an interesting strategy that Michael is being completely open about doing in the open through his company. And I salute Michael Saylor for being this open about what he is doing. But you have to keep in mind, everybody, Michael Saylor is in a completely different position than most of us are. If Bitcoin drops 50% or even goes to zero, MicroStrategy are still able to pay off all of the debt or smart debt because they're able to pay off all of the debt. So yeah, he's going all in on Bitcoin, but he's taking a calculated risk here, being smart about it. I also want to show one more clip here where he goes to explain why this bet makes so much sense, and he uses an analogy that makes everything very understandable. So before I play the clip, I just want to clarify one thing, and that's when he mentions the Bolivar, that's a reference to the Venezuelan currency. So just so that's clear, the Venezuelan currency, Bolivar, okay?
Why would you exit from the best investment asset in the world if it keeps getting better? Like, there's nothing you can buy that's better. So you're selling the winner to buy the loser. If let me make it simpler. if you owned if you owned a company in Venezuela and the company sold anything and you got paid in bolivars,
Hmm.
and you decided that, and you knew that the bolivar is going to keep falling at like 20-30% a year, and you roll the clock back 20 years. If you were unwise, you just keep working and eventually your assets go to zero. And if you were smart, you would convert your cash flows into US dollars and put it in a bank in New York City. Now, when would you exit from the dollars in New York City and trade back into the bolivars in Venezuela?
Right.
When?
Unless if that became a standard, if that became the leading currency in the world.
Well, what if the United States government said, well, you can do it tax-free? You're still not going to do it.
No, right, exactly.
Right? I mean, and that would be the case for any weakening currency in Argentina. And if you're in Zimbabwe, when are you going to exit your U.S.? If you basically bought, a New York City apartment and companies in New York City, and you're a billionaire in the United States, when are you going to sell all that and reinvest it back in Zimbabwe? You're not ever.
Right.
Right.
So you would just
because the point is, one of the assets is stronger than the other asset. If Bitcoin is capped at 21 million for the next 1,000 years, it's only going to get more valuable, right? You can make more apartments in New York City. You can print more US dollars. You can create more houses on the beach. You can create more artwork, give me something which is scarcer than pure monetary energy on the dominant global digital monetary network. There's not ever going to be anything. Like 100 years from now, there won't be anything, right?
I think Michael Saylor speaks for himself here. He just puts the hammer on the nail. When are you gonna sell? When are you gonna get out? He really puts it home here. So here's the facts. There's a lot of weakening currencies in the world, and the adoption of Bitcoin, has already begun. And as a lot of you are probably aware, El Salvador has become the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as its legal tender. And this is something that we're gonna see more of. Developing countries, they are making their way. Especially countries suffering under high inflation rates, it's forcing people into the best possible option for them, which in a lot of cases is gonna be cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin. It's simple because they need something where they don't get to have a finger at the stick, where they can pull up the money supply like Argentina did, whose most recent inflation rate was at 42% because they increased the money supply. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, most of these countries, they don't have even close to that high of an inflation rate, but they all suffer economic crises. All have centralized bodies who at the moment, any moment in time, they can suffer the consequence of, let's just make it simple, an increase in money supply. And what is really interesting is that in all of these countries, it's more often than not the individuals and the small organizations and businesses who are really leading the way. I'm going to show a picture here. I think this picture is from Brazil, and here you can see a terminal in a small store on the street who uses an X or Pundi X terminal. Pundi X is a blockchain network who tried to make it easier to make transactions for the average person. The goal is to break down the barrier that people feel when they adopt new technologies like crypto. Because ease of use is everything. Make it understandable. Don't have all of this fuss, and make it like professional so it's easy to understand. And that is really, there's products like this and people in these countries who are really trying their best to do what they can. So, and I think this is beautiful to see. So, that's it. I was Crypto John, and I hope you have a splendid day.